Hi everyone, welcome to Aspire to Wellbeing with Yoga. My name's Ali, and today I thought I'd create for you a short little technique video going through the 3 signature moves of the Vinyasa style yoga practice. So the Vinyasa is categorized by 3 movements. Chaturunga Dandasana, which is essentially lowering down through a tricep push-up, a back bend, either upward facing dog or cobra, and then followed by downward facing dog. And these 3 movements we refer to as Vinyasa. It links the flows together. So there are some options and there are some things to consider with your shoulders and your alignment, and we'll go through all of them in today's video. So before we get started into the technique, the options and the modifications, the first thing to be aware of is that we're going to be placing our weight on our hands. And when we do, we need to consider our shoulders. So especially when we're bringing our hands to the floor, the shoulders will want to roll forward. And the problem with that is that the shoulder joint will come out of the socket and expose all of the rotator cuff muscles for injury. And it also makes your neck feel and your upper traps feel really tight and tense. Instead, we want to roll the shoulder back in its socket, externally rotating the upper arm bones. So when we're on the floor, hands on the floor, and we're rolling our upper arm bones externally, it will feel like the armpits are moving towards the ribs. And you'll also notice that the crease of the elbow will spin more towards your index finger. The collarbone should be nice and broad, and the neck should feel nice and free. You also want to think about pressing into the whole hand, not just the heel of the hand, but under the fingernails too. So the first modification we'll take is through our knees. So we'll start in our plank. The hands will be directly underneath the shoulders. Lengthen the tailbone down towards the knees, draw the pubic bone up towards the navel and press through the whole hand. Have those shoulders roll back in the sockets. When we take chaturunga, it's on the exhale. And you want to bring the heart forward as you come down so that the elbows have space to move back towards your feet, brushing the elbows on the way through, landing the chest and hips together on the earth. The next move is cobra pose. Tops of the feet pressing down, thighs lifted off, pubic bone presses down, hip points and belly lift off the mat. You want to keep the glutes nice and relaxed here as well so that you're not engaging the upper glutes and tensing up the lower back. You want the lift to come from the middle of the back between the shoulder blades. So you roll the shoulder heads back in their sockets, keep the shoulder blades drawn down the spine, lift between the mid-back like you have a magnet there. The elbows still stay tucked into the sides. Try not to push with your hands. Try to just use the strength of your upper back and keep the back of the neck nice and long. So avoid looking up with your eyes and crunching into the back of your neck. Then the exhale breath will be downward facing dog. So here you'll press once again through the whole hands underneath the finger pads too, pressing through the hands and knees, tucking the toes under, and then finding your way into downward facing dog. So in flow, that'll look like chaturunga on the exhale, coming forward and down. Inhale for cobra pose, lifting with the mid back. And then exhale, downward facing dog, moving through your knees. So that's the modification on your knees. Let's move into the full version of your Vinyasa, the 3 movements on your toes. So it's very similar technique-wise. The hands are still underneath the shoulders, the shoulder settings are still on. Instead of being on our knees in our plank, we're on our toes, but we still have the tailbone lengthened towards the back of the knees and the pubic bone drawn up towards the navel. That all still stays the same. Same with the chaturunga. We still want to come forward as we come down. The elbows should still be facing the feet. And then as you're lowering down, your elbows should make a little ledge for your ribs. So you only want to come halfway down. Notice my shoulders aren't rounded down. They're still back in their sockets, pointing straight ahead. So one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is they do kind of this little spirit dive where they come down into their chaturanga and then they do a little upward facing dog. So the problem with that is that as they take their shoulders down, all of their weight is just dumping down into their shoulder socket, putting too much stress on the shoulders, and also the shoulders come out of its joint. So instead of letting those shoulders dump forward, we want to think shoulders rolled back in the sockets and just come halfway down into your chaturanga. So just to the point where those elbows touch the ribs, making that little ledge. Then you come to the tops of your feet. The thighs stay lifted off the floor, and you want to squeeze your back muscles to open up the chest and shoulders. The shoulders are still rolled back in their sockets, and here you want to think about the hip points moving towards the heel of the hand and the heel of the hand moving towards the hip points. The belly should be engaged, the glutes should be semi-relaxed. And then for your downward facing dog, it's like a reverse abdominal curl. Pull the ribs towards the hips. So feel the movement come from the belly, then press into the hands, then roll over into downward facing dog. So in flow, it will be from plank pose, exhale chaturanga, just halfway down, inhale into upward facing dog, exhale into downward facing dog. So there is another option that I'd like to offer you instead of taking chaturanga or any version of the cobra or upward facing dogs, is that you could replace the chaturanga and the upward facing dog with a cat-cow. You're still going to get that nice little back bend. So from your plank position, before we come into our chaturanga in our vinyasa practice, you'll be here. And then instead of taking the chaturanga by bending the elbows, instead you could take cat pose, tucking the tailbone under and rounding the spine. And then instead of the cobra pose, you could take cow pose, lengthening the tailbone towards the back of the room, dropping the belly, lifting the chest, taking the eyes up. So it's still a little back bend. And then into downward facing dog from here, just moving through your neutral spine, tucking the toes under, and then meeting in downward facing dog. So I hope you found this video helpful. Those 3 movements will be repeated quite a lot in most vinyasa classes, certainly mine. I have popped a couple of links down below to some of the classes so that you can practice those 3 moves within a vinyasa class environment. If you did find this video helpful and you liked it, please let me know by hitting the like button and making sure that you share it with anybody else that you might know that could benefit from this technique video. Also, feel free to leave any comments or questions down below. I will get back to you. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. It helps me to put weekly content for free out there to all you guys. If you hit the notification bell, you'll also be notified of when this content is uploaded. I hope to see you on the mat soon.